Hi, I'm Malika Bilal. Today, a stream update on 3 stories we've been following. Our community has their eye on them, and so do we.
And I'm Dan Ming. South Korea's former president Park Geun-Hye has been indicted on charges that could see her going to prison. And in France, elections are less than a month away. The race in the vote for president could go in any of the top candidates' favor.
But first, to Venezuela, where tens of thousands are on the streets to protest the government of Nicolas Maduro. Our colleagues at AJ Plus explain what's been happening there this month.
Ese falso patriotismo que ustedes pregonan, porque es falso, porque ustedes son unos golpistas, ustedes son unos traidores a la patria. Es falso, porque son ustedes los que dieron el golpe de Estado.
Venezuelan protesters are marching in cities across the country in opposition to recent policies of President Maduro. Wearing colors of the flag, they're calling for elections and the end of what they call the dictatorship. The president has blamed foreign nations for meddling.
Joining us to discuss Wednesday's protests and calls of the opposition, Raul Stolk. He's chairman of the Caracas Chronicles. Raul, thanks for joining us. I want to start here out on my laptop. Take a look. We got this tweet from Ennio. He said this was a picture of today's protests in Valencia. We've been getting updates from across the country of these protests that are happening today. You have reporters on the ground in Venezuela, Raul. What's the latest you're hearing?
Well, the latest we're hearing is that thousands of people all across the country are being repressed by government security forces, mainly with tear gas and with shotgun rubber pellets. But maybe the most tragic thing that has happened today was this morning a young man, a 19-year-old economics student called Carlos Moreno, was shot in the head while gathering in his neighborhood to go to the protest. Allegedly, it was a group of bikers that came to attack the group that was gathering there with tear gas and shooting firearms at them, and Carlos Moreno was shot in the head, and we just got the update that an hour ago or so he died. Yeah,
Thank
this
you
is the kind of
for
thing
sharing that update with us. It's tragic, and I know the opposition has called for non-violent protests. As you mentioned, they've been met with tear gas and riot police. Could this and the death change that call?
I don't think that's going to change the call. The opposition, and based on experience, they have always insisted in keeping the protest peaceful. The thing is that the government, they usually never let the protest to flow naturally. For instance, today's march was to go to the ombudsman's office, and they wouldn't let them reach there. I don't understand why they just won't let them reach their destination and just let them protest as the Constitution mandates. But you know, their attitude towards is as soon as the opposition gathers and start the marches, they just start. It's basic repression. They just attack them ruthlessly. It's you know, it's very sad, and because you know, violence brings violence, and protesters once they are tear gassed or shot at by shotguns, and once rumors spread that the protester was killed, obviously they react violently.
Right.
So Raul, we're also seeing protests in support of President Maduro and the ruling party. You can see here on my laptop, we found this tweet that's of a rally, and it's sort of, you see a sea of the color red. Can you talk about what is bringing these people out to the streets as well?
Well, yes, and we've got firsthand accounts of these people are mostly public employees or people who depend on the government indirectly, that not necessarily are public employees, but who depend directly on social programs by the government. The reach of these social programs is not so, doesn't cover so much. But the truth is that we have first-hand accounts of public employees who have been notified by the offices, by their employers, that they must go to march, and they have to report to their bosses that they have attended these government marches. In the past, we've seen that those who don't comply with this sort of request by their employers or have been kicked out of their jobs. And you can see it in the mood in the march. We have correspondents in the ground in the government march, and what they're saying is that, these people don't want to be there. Usually what the government does, since they are not repressed and they don't receive a violent reaction from security forces, they usually include like alcohol and sort of like a party vibe, but people there is just, they don't want to be there, mostly.
Raul, you mentioned your correspondents were out there on the ground. In our last show on Venezuela last year, we featured one of your correspondents, and we covered the economy, the state of it, the inflation, hyperinflation. We also covered the food crisis, people waiting in lines for rations. But these protests on Wednesday appear to be about much more than that. You have the opposition calling for the mother of all protests. What is it that's behind this?
Well, I think it's a mixture of things, but on one side, it's to restore constitutional order. As you know, the Supreme Tribunal tried to annul the recently elected by a landslide opposition-held Congress. So that's one of the reasons. That's sort of the political reason. But going back to what you said on the economic situation of the country, that's really what's behind this. There's a sense of desperation in the streets of Caracas. If you go now to the streets, it's not so much about people getting in line to get food. It's about people getting in line to go through trash. And this is not something that you have to look for. Just take a drive in any city in Caracas, and you will see people scrambling through garbage to feed themselves and their children. The inflation is rampant as always, and crime is as bad as it has been. Thousands of violent deaths a year. Children dying of malnutrition because there are no medicines. And on top of all this, you have the executive branch and the judicial branch trying to annul the recently elected and very popular Congress.
So, Raul,
I think that's a lot.
Raul, we got this tweet here from Chio. Take a look. It says, we asked, what do people want to see? And he said, general elections reinstating the ousted deputies from the National Assembly, just what you were talking about. What would it take for the government to agree to those kind of demands?
Well, when you say general elections, there's been a call for general elections, but also the thing is that last December we were supposed to have regional elections. Those didn't happen, and part of the call that the opposition is making right now is for those regional elections to take place. Adding to that, to the call for regional elections, now they have said that they want a new presidential election.
Raul, I have to pause you there. I know that is what people are talking about, and whether or not they're going to see that. I see signs of people saying we want elections, and they really just mean they want the president out. But that's all the time we have for this segment. We're going to keep following the story. I want to thank you for your time today. I hope you'll keep us updated on what's happening in Venezuela. Now to South Korea.
It's an unprecedented time in South Korea's history. Months of protests saw former President Park Geun-Hye impeached and arrested. She's been now indicted on charges of bribery and abuse of power, but she denies all wrongdoing. The country's in the hands of a caretaker government, and upcoming elections could turn the political tide of the country.
Well, with us to discuss in Seoul, journalist Bruce Harrison. And Suki Kim is an investigative journalist. Welcome to both of you. Now, Suki, in our last show in 2016, you mentioned the scandal surrounding the president exposed the shell of a democracy and a dictatorship that never ended. Those are your words. Has this indictment helped ease that concern at all?
I think so. I mean, for people, because it had a lot to do with the people's protest that really brought the impeachment about and ultimately removed Park Geun-hye from power. So I think that there is this sort of sense of justice served for people, because it did take millions of Koreans taking the street. And it's remarkable that in such a short time, the scandal broke in October 24th, 2016. And, by March, she was out of the office. And millions of people gathering every Saturday in the middle of Seoul and all across the streets. I think that wasn't, in a way, I think Koreans themselves are surprised that they pulled this off. So I do think so. I think there is a sense of satisfaction.
Are you surprised?
To be honest, I am actually surprised. I think that, the culture of corruption that is at the root of Korean politics is so deep-rooted. It doesn't mean that's been solved, but how quickly the power caved in some way. Everything they have wished for. Now all the bad guys, supposedly, just to make it simplify it, are in prison and on national television. People are seeing them being questioned, including the president, formally indicted just a couple of days ago. So on bribery charges, including Samsung also, which is a mega power in South Korea, which owns everything in the country, is also under, investigation. So I think that this it is a historical moment in Korea.
So I want to bring Bruce into the conversation. Bruce, take a look at my computer. We got this tweet from Eugene, and he said, "I believe the South Korean youth are looking for their voice to be heard, particularly in this day and age." But I want to ask you this, with elections coming up, how does all that energy translate into the electoral process? Are all these young people who are out in the streets going to rally behind a candidate?
That was one of the biggest things I did here during the protest. It was remarkable how many young people came out in the streets. It was surreal at points, watching these middle school students chant for the impeachment of the president. And I think they want a more equitable society. They viewed the scandal as the elite having a greater opportunity and advances in life, and they want to see that their education means something and they're able to get jobs and a decent wage. I think they'll support a candidate that is going to tackle corporate reform. That's one of the issues being discussed right now. National security is taking center stage with everything that's happening with North Korea. But how do we get part-time workers better pay? How do we get more women into the workforce? These things are being discussed on the campaign trail, and they will, I think, play a decent role in the vote getting coming up.
So I like that you mentioned that national security is taking center stage, but people are also worried about the economy and jobs. Take a look at this headline. This is from The Nation, a website. In South Korea, war hysteria is seen as an American problem. At least in the U.S. and in other Western media outlets, we hear a lot of talk of North Korea, provocation between U.S. President Trump and North Korean leader. Suki, is this on the minds of your average South Korean?
I think it's amazing because when you check the South Korean headline, right now the entire attention is on the election coming up on May 9th. North Korea thing, they've been dealing with it for decades, and it's kind of a standstill problem. And the strategic patience that Vice President Pence just said is over, it's kind of hard to see how it's over. Like, what is really that different? America is talking the tough language, but South Koreans have seen this over and over and over. American response might be a little bit more intense than before, but, nothing is that different for South Korea. So it is true. You don't really see it, in South Korea, right, Bruce?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was on the streets this week. Talking to some South Koreans. There is a difference of opinion based on age. I was talking to some folks in their 20s, and there is this general refrain, life as usual, despite the provocations from North Korea. But if you do talk to the older generations, 50s, 60s, and above, they do show more concern. Some told me they thought that this period of tensions was higher. I'll say this, it's interesting, what Suki said about strategic patience. I don't see much of a difference at this point, kind of a continuation of Obama's policy. So it'll be up to the Trump administration to prove they are actually going to shift in a different direction before maybe more people here really do become concerned about a potential war or some sort of destruction in the Seoul area or South Korea.
So Bruce, going back to the issue of corruption, which seems to be, at the top of people's concerns right now, we got this tweet here from Issa. He says, "I was at the protests and people are just tired of South Korean presidents abusing power, and it's happened on different occasions with presidents. So I'm wondering, how is all of this figuring into the election race? How are the candidates addressing people's concerns about corruption?"
Aside from national security, as I said, I think corruption is probably the next topic at campaign rallies. Chaebol reform, the reform of the country's major conglomerates is in the sights of the candidates, with, as Suki mentioned, the head of Samsung, now Lotte, another major company, being indicted and facing trial. It's going to be up to the candidates to say we're going to take a hard line on the cozy relationship between politicians and the leaders of corporate South Korea to make sure that these massive bribes and other forms of collusion, it goes back decades. Park Geun-Hye, her alleged crimes actually pale in comparison in terms of money compared to some of her conservative predecessors, hundreds of millions of dollars. Compared to what the president's facing.
You mentioned corruption. It is one of the things that one of the people who's being hailed as potential new president, one of the top candidates, has mentioned. Take a look at this. This is from The Economist. The loser in South Korea's last presidential race has another go. This is Moon Jae-in, who is set to profit from the impeachment of his predecessor. We shall see. Thanks, Suki Kim and Bruce Harrison, for your time. We'll be following this story. Now to another election in France. The first round of voting takes place on Sunday.
Far-left Jean-Luc Mélenchon has enjoyed a recent spike in his numbers. Conservative ex-Prime Minister François Fillon has shown popularity despite scandal, and the front-runners, far-right leader Marine Le Pen and centrist Emmanuel Macron, have seen their poll ratings dip. Some of the top concerns for voters: jobs, immigration, security, and France's relationship with the European Union.
Well, with us to discuss all of this is Reem-Sarah Alouane. She's a researcher in public law at the University Toulouse Capitale. Welcome to the stream. Reem-Sarah, I want to start with this tweet. Every day, of course, the stream puts out, what stories are you following to our community members? And you responded, on my side of the Atlantic, the French presidential election first round on Sunday, 23rd of April. That is coming up very soon. How would you describe the electorate right now, your fellow French citizens? How are they feeling about this election?
They cannot wait for it to end because don't forget we have other election on June as well. This is a mess everybody wants to get rid of, but at the same time, my fellow French citizens, including myself, are extremely concerned with the outcome of this election, especially with the rise of populism. So we are looking forward to seeing who is our next president, but unfortunately, we don't have much expectation as well.
So we have this tweet here. I want to read it to you from Razak. He says, "The rise of nationalists is a shame in this 21st century. We'd seen it with Brexit and Trumpism, and now Le Pen," he says, sad. So Le Pen has been getting a lot of attention, Reem-Sarah, in this election. How representative do you think she and the National Front are of where the French population is right now?
It has been quite a while now that the rise of far-right ideology has been skyrocketing. But let me tell you something. I am not sure that the people are ready to French kiss a xenophobic demagogue. Yes, she is the Front National is the third main party in France, but the people cannot be fooled. We have seen what happened with Trump in power. We are currently seeing what is going on with Brexit. And the people are fearing for the future, and Marine Le Pen does not represent the people. She represents her party. She is currently playing the national identity card again to attract more people who still do not know for whom to vote. But in the end, mathematically, and thanks to our system, I do not believe she will win that election, at least not now.
So mathematically, according to your system, and your system, of course, is one round of vote and then a second round vote between the top two candidates. I pulled up Marine Le Pen's Twitter account here with her 1.38 million followers and one of her campaign pages right here, 3 days before the day of the vote. You mentioned Brexit. You mentioned the election of Donald Trump in the U.S. in the same sentence as, mathematically speaking, this can't happen. But don't those two examples show you that really anything could happen?
Of course. I mean, she's a candidate. She has her chances to win. But do not forget that we do not have, first, Brexit was a referendum. Second, we do not have the same system as the US. We elect directly our president. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. The Electoral College elected Donald Trump. But my comparison is that the people will vote strategically. And for Marine Le Pen to be able to have a majority, she will need basically most of the vote for other parties. But other parties, including the right wing, are not going to give their votes for Marine Le Pen. And even hypothetically, if she managed to win, we have legislative election on June, and she will need a majority at the National Assembly to be able to implement her policy, which will never happen.
So Reem, Sarah, we got this video comment sort of about the top issues in the election and also how divided the vote is. I want you to take a listen. This is from Manuel.
So to me, the most important issues in these upcoming elections are first, the persistent rise of the extreme right and of divisive and isolationist speech. Second, the recurring corruption scandals that partially tarnish the campaigns of François Fillon and Marine Le Pen. And third, the unique constitutional situation we'll most likely be facing, as 3 of the frontrunners do not belong to any of the 2 main political parties. They will have to negotiate a coalition in parliament if they actually want to govern once elected, which is unprecedented.
So Reem, Sarah, this is a 4-way race with very different candidates, as we've mentioned. How does the winner of the second round bring together a coalition and actually govern?
Here again, it will all be about strategies, and it depends on who will pass the test of the first round. Of course, they will have to make some. They will have to have some discussions regarding the treatment of the treaties of the European Union. So the European Union will be one reconciliation. They will have discussions they will have to have, and they will have to reconcile around it. And the second, if Marine Le Pen pass this round, the strategy would be to get and find some common point to counter her. And this, the main topic that will be discussed in plus of the European Union one will be immigration and security, which is a topic that the French are expected to have answers to, since we are in a very difficult situation regarding terrorism. So this strategy will work. They will find an alliance. Now the question is, which candidate is going to be at the second round? Right. We have very diverse candidates, and the people want to change. They're tired of the mainstream parties, the Socialist Party, who disappointed a lot of people, and the right-wing party, like in the video, like the person in the video said, which was stained by many scandals. Even Marine Le Pen had her campaign stained with fake, allegedly fake jobs accusations.
I am fascinated by your knowledge on this. Can't wait to see what happens. I have to pause you there. That's all the time we have. But thank you for your pitch and for joining us today. Now, if you at home have a story you'd like us to update, let us know. #AJStream. You could see it on our next update show. Until next time, we'll see you online.